Hi, everyone, and thanks for checking out this movie review. So, today we'll be continuing it with the next film in my current horror franchise for the month of September, which is the Halloween franchise. And today we'll be taking a look at the seventh film in that franchise, which is Halloween H2O, or Halloween 20 Years Later from 1998. So, yeah, I'll just kind of go through the setup and the premise, the cast of the movie, and then I'll get into my thoughts and review, which will contain spoilers. So, Halloween H2O, or 20 Years Later, is a 1998 American slasher film directed by Steve Miner. It's the seventh installment of the Halloween franchise, but it retcons the Jamie Lloyd story arc of the previous three installments. So, it's a direct sequel to the first two films. So we find a post-traumatic Laurie Strode who has faked her death in order to go into hiding from her brother Michael Myers, but who ends up finding her working at a private boarding school in California. So we pick up on October 29th, 1998. Michael Myers breaks into Dr. Sam Loomis's retirement house in Langdon, Illinois. Loomis's former colleague Marion Chambers, who took care of Dr. Loomis until he died, arrives and discovers that the file on Laurie Strode, who is presumed dead in an automobile accident, is missing. Michael murders her teenage neighbor Jimmy and his friend Tony before leaving the house with Laurie's file. And so then we cut to Summer Glen, California, where Laurie, having faked her own death to avoid Michael, lives under an assumed name, Carrie Tate, having a career as a head mistress of Hillcrest Academy, a private boarding school. Laurie is also in a relationship with Hillcrest guidance counselor Will Brennan. However, Laurie is far from happy as the tragic events from 1978 still haunt her. She lives in fear that her brother may return for her. While a woman and her daughter are at a rest stop, Michael steals their car. At the academy campus, the students leave to attend a school trip to Yosemite, leaving only Laurie, Will, security guard Ronnie Jones, Laurie's son John, and his girlfriend Molly Cartwell, and their classmates Charlie and Sarah, who are having a Halloween party in the school basement. So you can probably guess what happens from there. If you've seen the film, you know, but that's basically the setup and the premise of the film. Cast wise, of course, we have Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode slash Carrie Tate, Adam Arkin as Will Brennan, Michelle Williams as Molly Cartwell, Jody Lynn O'Keefe as Sarah Wainthrope, Adam Han Bird as Charlie DeVraxix, Janet Lee as Norma Watson, Josh Hartnett as John Tate, LL Cool J as Ronnie Jones, Joseph Gordon Levitt as Jimmy Howell, Chris Durand as Michael Myers, and Nancy Stevens as Marion Chambers Withington. So yeah, that's Halloween H2O from 1998. I'm just going to call it H2O. Some people say Halloween 20 years later. Whatever. It's H2O is the name of it for me. So yeah, it's a pretty good movie. I do have a couple of big beefs with it, but there's also some things I really enjoy about this movie. I'd say it's a mixed bag, but I think I enjoy it more than I don't, unlike some of the previous entries. So let's just get into it. We'll start with the pros. You got to start with Jamie Lee Curtis. I think this is her best performance in a Halloween movie, at least of the ones that I've seen so far. I know she's in a couple of ones coming up. One I've seen, one I haven't. So, but from what I've seen, I think she's great in this role. This is her best performance, in my opinion. Um, and of course, we catch up with this important character and what her life is like at this point, having been 20 years since the first two films. And she's got a pretty nice character arc, I think, since those first two movies. She's definitely not the same girl or woman that she was in the first two movies. Obviously, I don't think anybody would be. You'd be changed by what happened. But I just think Jamie Lee Curtis really delivers in this movie, in this role, more than she has in any other Halloween movie. Um, this movie's really back to Halloween basics as far as sequels go. It ignores sort of regardless of what you thought of the Thorn cult, that whole trilogy of 4, 5, and 6. This is just back to basic Michael stalking his sister. You don't have all the cult stuff and all the other people involved. It's just him stalking his sister again after 20 years, and yeah, there's a part of it that's really enjoyable with that. It's got a nice new fresh setting away from Haddonfield, where we've already have five movies involving Myers and Haddonfield. So I like the fact that they moved this movie away from Haddonfield. None of it takes place in Haddonfield, even the beginning, which takes place in a town close by to Haddonfield, Langdon, Illinois. And then the rest of it's in California. Of course, I kind of like that. I know some people don't like that it's not in Haddonfield, but as I said, we've already had five movies with Myers and Haddonfield, so I like the new setting. The third act of this movie is the best part of the movie to me, besides Jamie Lee Curtis. The third act is just awesome, with Laurie finally deciding that she's done running, and she's going to confront her brother to the death. What he's going to die or she's going to die, but this is going to come to an end here, and it's very powerful. Jamie Lee Curtis really sells it. I think it's very fitting for this character after all these years. Um, the end of the movie, aside from the third act, like the very end of the movie, is the best and most satisfying ending, I think, of any Halloween movie, even including the first one and the second one. It's just a full circle closure to the entire franchise. Now, as we know, this wasn't the end to the entire franchise. There's lots of different timelines, but to me, this is up through what I've seen. This is the best ending, what I'm going to call canon to this franchise. Um, Technically, it's not, but it just does a really great job of wrapping up, if you want to say, the first two movies and then this one. It's a nice sort of trilogy, Laurie Strode trilogy, if you want to say. And even if you want to include four, five, and six, I think it's still a nice wrap up to the first. Well, not counting part three, because that has nothing to do with Myers, but the first five movies involving Myers. And now this one being the sixth one, if you just focus on Michael Myers, I think even in that premise, it's a really good wrap up to the canon of those movies. And so, yeah, it's just a great ending. I think the entire movie's paced really well to where there's not much that like drags or is slow. It's not a sludge to get through. It's a nice, efficient 90-minute Halloween movie that has a pretty nice pace to it, I think. And I have to talk about the fact I really like, as a big Psycho fan, I really like the cameo of Janet Leigh, who, of course, was Jamie Lee Curtis's mom in real life. But I also like the Psycho references as well. I mean, she talks about when she has a scene, one particular scene with Laurie Strode, when she's talking about we've all had bad things happen to us, and then she goes and gets into the actual car that she had in Psycho, not a replica, the actual car, which is pretty impressive. I'm not quite sure how they did that or were able to have that car still refurbished after, it'd be almost 40 years from the original Psycho. And then just some of the music, the Psycho music playing as she's getting. I just love that stuff. It was just a great nod, just a great tribute to Psycho and Janet Leigh. I really enjoyed that, so I have to bring it up as a pro in this movie. So yeah, those are my pros for Halloween H2O. Um, as far as cons go, I do have some. You got to start with the mask, and not just the mask shown here that you see in most of the movie, but all four masks that they use throughout the course of this movie. You have a mask that they use from Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. You have a CGI mask. You have the mask they end up going with, and then there's another one I can't remember, but I don't like any of them. Again, I don't know, and I don't understand why it's so hard for these movies to get the mask right. It's only gotten right so up to this point once, well, twice, I guess, if you count the second movie, which was the Shatner mask yet. But I think Halloween 6 is the only movie that actually got it right for my taste. Every other movie up through this one, the seventh movie, has bungled it, in my opinion. I just don't know why it's so hard. But in this movie, they really had their problems with it. And a lot of it had to do with reshoots and different things like that, production. But yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of the fact that I like the Myers mask where you can just see darkness through the eyes. In this movie, you can actually see part of his face, like the skin and the eyes, and he looks too human. I don't know. It's just not as scary to me. And Yeah, seeing the human eyes and this part of the human part of the face, it just doesn't feel right to me. I don't like it. And like I said, the CGI mask is horrible. All the other ones that they use in this movie, they really had a problem with the mask in this movie. Also, another big problem I have is the score in this movie, aside, of course, from the classic Halloween theme, which they do use at the very beginning of this movie, towards the end, and then at the very end, both the opening and ending credits. That's fine. I like that and the version that they go with, a little bit more modern. But all the music, like the what music that they have in the middle of the film, where Michael is sort of stalking Laurie and the other characters, it's just like what the. That's just not Halloween. I don't know why they made those choices. I don't like the score though. Um, it's not a great Halloween score. It's just weird. Um, Myers himself, played by Chris Durand. I don't think Chris Durand's the worst Myers, or the worst person to play Myers, but he's definitely not the best. And I don't know. I just didn't find his both his look and his performance. I didn't find overly scary. It just doesn't quite. It just I just don't. He's not the biggest guy in the world, so he's not intimidating to start with. And then you throw in a bad mask and just his movements and stuff. I didn't think were great. Again, he's not the worst. It worked well enough for this movie, but it definitely stood out to me as well. Um, This movie, well, it's a Halloween movie. It's not really a get under your skin kind of scary Halloween movie like some of the other ones were. Even Part Six, Part Four, Part Two, and it just kind of it's more of a paint by numbers Halloween movie that just doesn't have that get under your skin disturbing. I guess none of them are really disturbing, but just it's just not scary. And it's got a few more jump scares as well, which don't really work. Again, they're just jump scares are fine if they work and they're within context of the movie, but in this movie, I don't really feel like they offer anything positive. In a lot of ways, it's more Laurie's movie than it is Michael's. In fact, I think at one time they were going to call this the Revenge of Laurie Strode or something, Halloween 7, the revenge of, or the return of Laurie Strode. I can't remember, but they didn't want to do that for obvious reasons. It doesn't sound good, and they've already used return revenge in another sequel. So I think they did right to pick the name that they did. But in a way, it is kind of more Laurie's movie. You kind of catch up with this victim from the first two movies, and Michael happens to come back and try to make her a victim again permanently this time. But um, there's kind of a long if you're somebody that likes Halloween kills, you like Michael Myers kills, you might not like this movie because you get a few at the beginning, and one of them's even off screen, I think, maybe a couple of them. And then you got to wait till the third act really to get any more kills in the movie. So there is sort of a long pause in that regard. Like I said, the movie doesn't slog down, but as far as kills go, there's quite a long pause between the kills at the beginning of the movie, even before the opening credits, and then when you get to the next one out in California, the setting for this movie. Um, And I think the movie also focuses on John, her son, and his friends more than it needs to. Especially for a Laurie Strode, Michael Myers movie. I don't know. I thought they could have done some other things instead of giving us all the teenage stuff that we get. But it's a slasher movie. I mean, I guess it's okay. It's not the worst. I've seen other slasher movies focus on bad characters more. Um, the characters aren't actually bad in this movie. That's one thing I didn't mention in my pros. Obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis is great, but I would even say that Alan Arkin's a good actor. I like him. Michelle Williams and Josh Hartnett, kind of before they hit it big. Those two are okay. The guy that plays Charlie doesn't really do much for me. He's probably the worst of the main characters. Even LL Cool J's fine, although I'm not sure why he's in this movie. But I mean, he's not horrible or anything. And then, I talked about Chris Durand a little bit already as Michael Myers. He's not my favorite Myers. He's not very physically intimidating. It's not an overly intimidating Myers anyway. Um, but yeah, it's getting back to LL Cool J. Another con I have, my last one, is it kind of feels like a gimmick that he's in this movie. Now, not as much as another movie that we haven't gotten to yet. But I mean, he's fine in the movie. He's got that charm that just kind of works, and I don't think he's a terrible actor. But his character really doesn't have much to do in this movie. He spends most of his screen time on the phone. It just kind of feels like a late '90s sort of gimmick, a little bit to me. But I don't know, guys. Those are my thoughts on this movie. It's an enjoyable enough Halloween movie, and well, I don't always put it on around Halloween time like I do the first, well, two movies for sure. Probably the first four movies most Halloweens. This is one that I will watch at Halloween. It's enjoyable enough, especially with Jamie Lee Curtis's performance. I just wish we got a better Michael, better mask, a more intimidating Michael, and more scares and kills. But I mean, there's enough here. There's enough intrigue with the character arc of Laurie Strode, and like I said, I love the ending. I absolutely love the ending. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, where they have the final confrontation and the whole will he or won't, or will she or won't he, and then just the abrupt ending we get with the Halloween theme. I mean, it's perfect. Just end the franchise there. That's what they should have done, but they didn't. We'll get to that later. But I'm going to give this movie a 7.5 out of 10 as far as the rating goes. I like it. It's enjoyable. It does have some problems that do stand out to me though. 7.5 out of 10 is my rating. Go ahead and tell me what you guys think of Halloween H2O from 1998 down below in the comments, guys. How would you rate it? Your pros and cons. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell to see my next videos dropping. And please subscribe to this channel to see future movie reviews as well as reviews within this franchise, including the ranking video at the end of the month, as well as my 31 days of horror movies in October I got coming up. So thanks for watching this video and stay scared. Bye.